Hello and welcome to this video where I give you recommendations of fast-paced books if you want to get into reading or you just want to read a fast-paced book. In addition to fast-paced, these are like unputdownable, you don't want to stop reading type of books. I feel like they go hand in hand because either way you end up reading it faster. Starting off, I have The Cruel Prince. This is a YA fantasy with a whimsical fairy world mixed with a human one. Like, they're separate but you can go back and forth if you know about the fairy one. There's a romance at the core of these books and it's like an enemies to lovers romance. It's like a political fantasy, so the romance isn't in all of it, but to me that's like something that kept me reading. It has a lot of action in it, so that's part of what makes it fast-paced, is there's always some plotting or scheming or fighting that's going on, or the romance, which is also plotting, scheming, and fighting. They have a very complicated relationship. The vibes of these books, because it's like a trilogy for this specific series, so good. This is one of those fast-paced books where you feel like you've disappeared into another place and you're just like, time goes by super fast and then you're like almost done with the book and you feel like you weren't even in the real world for however many hours. I think I first read this one like years ago and I just remember not being able to put it down. I was completely obsessed with it and it's unlike any other book that I've read. There's something just different about this series. If anyone knows one like it, please tell me, because I have been just chasing the feeling that this book has given me. I did read Stolen Air, which is like a spin-off series of this. That one's very good and it does have like the same vibes, but this one's just, it's unbeatable. Shatter Me, this one is like a dystopian world. It's a fantasy book. People have like powers. The world is kind of like in ruins. A big military presence or like army presence. This is also a very complicated relationship, enemies to lovers, with like a lot of fighting, but I feel like it's like more tame somehow than The Cruel Prince. And this one's like not very tame, but I feel like it somehow is more tame than The Cruel Prince. If you're on like book social media, you might have heard of Aaron Warner. He is an iconic book boyfriend, if you will, and he is in these books. And I will just say, at least give it the chance to read until the third book, Ignite Me, because that one's just so good. It's not like a super short book, but it felt like it was when I was reading it. By the end, I was like, wow, I just read an entire book and I don't even feel like I did, because it's just like completely keeps you on your toes, I guess. It starts off with a girl named Juliet who's in this like psych ward type of place and she's trapped in there. She has this, you know, little thing going on where she touches someone and then they die. She's kept in this room and then all of a sudden one day they bring this guy in and then she meets this other guy who's apparently taking her or recruiting her for an experiment. He's taking her to his base. He's like a military person and he's taking her to basically use her as like a weapon. She's one of many people in this book who have powers. I only read until the fourth book in this series. They all went by really fast and I kid you not, I stopped reading because I was like, I need to stop. I loved the fourth book that I read. It wasn't even that I didn't like it, it's just that I felt like I was too invested in the world. This one I feel like is very easy to get into too if you're just starting out reading, because it takes place in somewhere that's like the real world and it's not like super intense fantasy building, like fantasy world building. A romance book that I think went by really quickly is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I'm pretty sure I read this within a day. I would describe this book as sunshine in book form, walking on clouds in book form. Oh, this is also where I discovered how much I love the friends to lovers trope. Poppy and Alex meet at their like college orientation. They have like a interaction, but then she ends up meeting him or like knowing who he is again because her friend is like, oh, he lives in the same town as you, maybe he can give you a ride home. He gives her a ride home, and then ever since then they become friends and they go on these like annual trips to different places. The story goes back from present time where they're not talking and you don't know why they're not talking. It goes between that present time and then the past time of like every vacation that they went on in the past years, and just them, you see them like falling in love, but then they never say, like they never have that romance moment where they're like, oh, we like each other. So you just see that unravel in real time in addition to like all their history they have. I love a good back and forth between timelines. I used to think that I wouldn't like that, but it really keeps the story entertaining for me, especially one where like I feel happy in each timeline. Like I don't enjoy one of these timelines way more than the other one. I just like them both a lot. If not this one by Emily Henry, then I would recommend Beach Read, because most people that I hear their favorite Emily Henry book is usually Beach Read. I don't know if that's just the people that I've been seeing talking about books. I would also recommend this one. I do feel like People Meet on Vacation, at least in my opinion, is a little bit more fast-paced, but this one still is like an easy, fast read, and it's very good. I love both of them. Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. So, okay, as you can see, my obsession with Friends to Lovers, slow burns, it started and it never quite stopped. I'm still obsessed. I still love it. Love and Other Words is one of my all-time favorite books, favorite romances. It's so, so, so good. I believe I also read this one in one day. I just loved it so much. A girl named Macy goes with her dad and like lives in this little vacation house for the summers. She goes with her dad to check out this new place that they just got. By the way, this is when she's like a little kid, and she goes and opens her closet and there's like a little boy reading in it, and they become best friends and they like always read in that closet together, and that becomes like the reading closet. This is another one that goes back and forth between the present timeline where they don't talk anymore. I love that trope so much. I really do. I don't know what it is, but like just I don't know. Sometimes though that trope's really painful, but I feel like in the ones that I love, it's not as bad. Like, it's not as painful. If it is painful, then it's painful in a good way. So the story goes back and forth between her and Elliot, Macy and Elliot, falling in love, growing up, and then them when they're older 10 years later. And there's a lot to catch up on. A lot of stuff happens that's like kind of heavy. I was completely fine reading it. I didn't think it was too triggering, but at the same time, like, I think it's something that's worth checking the trigger warnings for. So, you know, I think just rule of thumb, check the trigger warnings for any book if you feel like there's something that might trigger you, you know. Next is a literary fiction, Malibu Rising. I think it's a literary fiction. I think that's what this is. Out of all of Taylor Jenkins Reid books, I feel like this one is the most fast-paced, the easiest to get into. It's the best for if you're getting into reading, because it really pulls you into like this family drama dynamic. They're all friends, like they grew up kind of just being there for each other because their home lives and their family is really kind of unconventional with the way that their mom and dad are. Their dad is a famous rock pop star, Mick Riva, and he's like kind of a deadbeat dad. Their mom died when they were still growing up. I love the pacing of this. I love the sibling dynamic. I love just the way that she writes in general. Fast-paced, entertaining, almost like a reality TV show. Crazy things happening all the time. This is a YA romance. Some mistakes were made. Oh my gosh. Okay, the thing that makes this one so fast-paced is that it's like a roller coaster of dramaticness. It's a roller coaster of angst, a roller coaster of like ups and downs for the characters. I think it just grips you. It like gripped my heart and then it like didn't let it go. I was just having so many up and down emotions while reading this, just page to page. This is another Friends to Lovers that goes back and forth between timelines. The obsession, it's never gonna go away. There's part of it of like when they're younger and they're meeting each other and growing up together. When Ellis is growing up, she doesn't have like a very stable at-home life, so she becomes really close with Easton's family and they kind of take her under their wing. In the present timeline, she's living in a different state and she's really upset with most of the family and Easton, and so much has happened. You don't really understand the very beginning when reading it, but then it slowly starts to reveal like what happened. I love how dramatic this is. Because of how the plot was, I could not put it down, and I love the characters too. It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. This is a grumpy sunshine and like a small town romance where a girl who's like a social media person and just very much like a city girl goes to a small town as like a punishment, and then she ends up falling for a crab fisherman, I'm pretty sure. She's based off of the character Alexis in Schitt's Creek, and I love that show. I love that character. Yes, she's all these things that maybe could be seen as bad qualities, but it's so entertaining in this book. And she's also like, she has a good heart, and it's just so fun to read, so fast-paced. I love it. I was always being fed by what was happening in the romance. Like, the problem that I have sometimes when I'm reading a romance is that I feel like there are just long stretches of me not getting anything from the romance. But in this one, I felt like I was always getting a little something from the romance, and that things were constantly happening to bring them together, and that is for me what makes a really fast-paced romance a lot of the times. I have everything piled so riskily right now. It's like, it's only a matter of time. When I'm filming these types of videos where I just sit in front of the camera and I have like a stack of books, 9 times out of 10 it falls at some point. Next up, The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barr, and it has super short chapters. You feel like you're reading so much faster. Chapter 1's like 2 pages. My taste in books, I like a lot of different things, but one thing that I really love is heists and fun games and mystery in books. Those things, like, you feel like a fiction book has that, I will be in it. Not only does this one have short chapters and a love triangle, but it also has a mystery that keeps you wanting to know what happens next. And it starts off with this girl who doesn't really have any money and she's living with her sister. One day she gets called to the principal's office and she ends up finding out that she's inheriting like $46 billion, I think. $46.2 billion. She has no idea who this man is who died and left her all of this money, and he left her the house that he owns where his grandsons, his 4 grandsons reside. A thing to know about this guy who left her all this money is he loves games. He loves making games for people to play. A requirement for her to keep this money is that she has to live in this house with his grandsons in it and stuff for an entire year. I think it's 1 year. She can't leave there for like a certain amount of days at a time. She's also living there with like his kids and other relatives and people who may or may not want to kill her. Throughout the book, she's trying to figure out why she was receiving this money and like solving a mystery, trying to basically play the game that he set up. She's playing it with his grandsons. And you guessed it, the love triangle is between 2 of his grandsons. This is one of those books that I wish I could read for the first time again. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This is one that I've talked about so much recently, so I'm gonna keep it very short, but if you want like a murder mystery, it is a girl who's doing a school project about a cold case that happened 5 years ago where everyone thinks it's this one guy who committed the murder. She really doesn't think that he did it, or she wants to like investigate it more. She ends up finding out a lot and starting a podcast. It's really fast paced and it has that murder mystery sort of thing where like you don't want to stop reading because you want to find out what happens next, and it really keeps you on the edge of your seat, and in my opinion it is not predictable to me. I definitely did not predict it. Oh my gosh, okay. Also, there is a romance that is very cute. Of course. Next up, another book that I've been talking about a lot, so I'm gonna try to keep it short. The Naturals. This is another like murder mystery type thing. It's about a girl who's really good at reading people, and like very good, like crazy good. Almost seems like it's a magic power, but it's just her, I don't know, her natural gift. She gets recruited into this program. The program is with the FBI. They begin a classified program that uses exceptional teenagers to crack infamous cold cases, and they need Cassie. Her mom was actually a victim in a cold case and she doesn't know what happened. So with that is like a bit of what's motivating her. She joins the program and then she ends up being a target of one of the people that they're looking into. There's also a love triangle in this, and it's by the same author who wrote The Inheritance Games. I don't think these chapters are like as short as that one. They're pretty short actually. I've read the second book too. I love it, and I actually just recently got the third. Love Theoretically is one that I read really recently by Ali Hazelwood. Elsie is a adjunct. Okay, I don't know all these like academic words. She works in academics. Being an adjunct, however, doesn't pay very much. So she also does this thing on the side where she is like a fake date for people. So she ends up fake dating for this guy, and she like keeps him as a regular customer because she really likes him. He's just really nice and respectful. But then her real life, like outside of fake dating, starts to run into her fake dating life when she encounters his older brother, and that's who the romance is with. Cheesy in the best way, and I liked it a lot. The Summer I Turned Pretty is another book trilogy that went by so fast for me. I just remember like reading these and just not being able to stop reading them and finishing the whole series and being like, wow, I just spent so much of my life reading this series. But that's because it was so good and it was so fast paced and it kept me on the edge of my seat. I was also kind of going through it at this time, so I don't know, I was very thankful for these books for existing, because I was like, wow, I just completely transported into another world for a solid however many hours it took me to finish these books. There's a love triangle at the center of it, and it's also just like a really beautiful, like there's a lot of beautiful messages intertwined in it. I really like the friendship, and I also love the friendship between the moms. It's good. It's just good. I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. It's a memoir, and I never thought that I would like books like that, but then I read it and I listened to it as an audiobook, and I kid you not, I could not stop listening to it. I was so hooked, and it just took me by surprise. It was very fast paced, very well written, and she narrates it herself. Last but not least, if you want to get into reading a mafia romance book, or if you just want to know a good one, Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. So good, so fast-paced, enemies to lovers, arranged marriage. I absolutely loved it and it went by super quick. Now that I'm talking about it, I kind of want to reread this one. I think it's also like a good starter book for a mafia romance. I think it's the first one that I actually read. That is all for my fast-paced book recommendations. Thank you so much for watching this video. Remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of my videos, and you could also follow me on my other social medias where I talk about books. I'll link them all in the description. If you have any fast-paced book recommendations, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.